Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another tech video. And on Monday, we talked about the PlayStation 5, about 10 months too late. And today, we're going to be talking about the Xbox Series X, about 10 months too late. So let's get started before it gets even less relevant. And actually, before we get started, say it all with me. We said it on Monday. Scalpers. Anyway, let's get into the console review. So in case you guys missed my video on Monday about the PlayStation 5, number one, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any other videos. But also, I talked about how the game library was decent and they had a lot of exclusives, but backwards compatibility was and the design was not quite to my taste, but unique nonetheless. And the controller really made this thing feel like a totally next generation device. And with the Xbox Series X, it's basically the opposite. So let's talk about why. So starting at the top with the games and software. So software first. This thing, when you turn it on, feels exactly like an Xbox One. And that's because the only difference in the home screen is the fact that you can add moving backgrounds. Everything else looks like an Xbox One X or One S or whatever you had. It's from the Xbox One era, which I find kind of weird considering this is the design or an iteration of it that came from the TV era of the Xbox One that nobody really wants to talk about. And I'd assume that if you're going to focus very heavily on a gaming-oriented device, you'd want to distance yourself from the less than stellar taste you left in the mouth of a lot of gamers with last generation, but hey, what do I know? But even though they didn't really change the home screen a whole lot, the focus on gaming definitely shows in the other aspect of the software, which is, well, the games. So when it comes to games, Microsoft and Sony took two very different approaches, and I personally like the Xbox's approach, but wish they had kind of mixed the two approaches that Sony and Microsoft took. Here's what I mean. The PlayStation 5 focused primarily on exclusives, things like Spider-Man Miles Morales or Demon's Souls, things that came only to the PlayStation 5 or only looked this good on PlayStation 5. And other games are there and they're from the old generation, but you either got to do PlayStation Now if you don't have the disc version like me, or you have to hopefully have those older discs and hope that they are compatible. And I don't like that approach as much just because I like to be able to carry my entire library forward without losing any games. Enter the Xbox Series X. This game console focused so much on backwards compatibility that as of right now, the only exclusive game to the Xbox Series X and S lineup that didn't come to the Xbox One was Flight Simulator. That's it. Apart from that, you have older titles that have been optimized for the Xbox, but that's fine because if you like playing your games that you've collected over the years, you can do that here. Like, get this, when I bought this console, not only was I able to get all of my previous Xbox games that I have been buying digitally basically since I bought an Xbox One, but on top of that, I was able to put in 360 discs and it knew what they were. And I was even able to put in Xbox original discs from the old school Xbox and it found them. I was sitting on the floor like a crazy person just putting discs in and seeing if it recognized it. And at the end of the day, I actually had a larger stack of compatible games from the old consoles than I did games that weren't compatible. It was kind of surprising. But the reason why I wish they had mixed this was because having exclusives that actually only run on this console are really what show off what this next generation can do. And if you optimize older games for it, the glamour and the flashiness and the newness of the device just kind of falls to the wayside because you just feel like you're playing something you've already played before because normally, yeah, you are. I don't know, I just kind of wish that maybe they had given us a few more exclusives. Like, I'm glad that they're giving the developers more time to make these exclusives into something worthy of the hardware in this thing, which we'll talk about in a minute. But at the end of the day, having all these games is great, and I am not complaining at all. But you eventually just feel like you're playing the same games over and over again, and Microsoft almost seems like they're just buying time so that they can make exclusives. So, I don't know, it's weird. Because here's the thing, if they had taken advantage of the hardware in this with launch games that were exclusive to this console, Microsoft could basically no longer have to rely on the it's more powerful on paper thing because, yeah, this is a powerful console. So that transitions us pretty smoothly into the hardware of this device. Now, starting with the actual appearance, when it was first announced, I was kind of skeptical of it. I wasn't really sure how to feel about it because while I am a very function over form kind of person, this seemed just kind of weird. It seemed big, it was a rectangle, it didn't seem like it would fit in anything normal, and I thought that it was glowing green on the top, but it's actually just these little plastic tint things on the inside. So I was skeptical of the design. And then I saw it next to a PlayStation 5 and realized that, yeah, this isn't the biggest console out there. On top of that, this, when it comes to my preference of function over form, is right up my alley because the form is dictated by the function. So I said that this thing is on paper more powerful than the PlayStation 5, and that is true on paper so far. We've yet to, again, see a game that fully takes advantage of it, but that's a different conversation for a different time. But with all that power comes a lot of needed cooling, and why I say the function of this device determined the form, dictated the form, was because all that cooling is handled by basically pulling cold air in from the bottom and blowing it out the top. And they made a design around that cooling system, and it does a damn good job. Like, I've had this thing sitting over at my TV, and it is dead silent even under the most demanding loads like Flight Simulator, and I've even had it on a desk, like right next to me when I'm capturing footage, and it is still inaudible. It is impressively quiet. Like, I can even hear the fan whine and the coil whine from the PlayStation 5 when it's sitting close enough. This, nothing. I've literally never heard this thing at all with the fans. It's kind of wild. Like, I've even done stupid stuff like putting games on top of the vents just to see what it does, and they put this little vent thing at the back to blow air out, and I thought maybe, okay, I'll finally hear the fans. No, like, until I go like this, couldn't hear anything. It's really wild. Now, just like the PlayStation 5, this thing does have an SSD, and we'll get into one of the features that I like about the SSD in a minute, but this comes with a terabyte. Now, I don't have a lot of PlayStation games, so the limited storage wasn't a big issue for me. I have a ton of Xbox games. I've got Xbox games literally spanning all the way back to the original Xbox, and I didn't have the space for them. And I like to keep a lot of games on one console so that I can play whatever I want, whenever I want. And yeah, I basically filled this 1 terabyte instantly. Microsoft has a solution for that, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. So around back of the console, you'll see obviously your USBs, an Ethernet, and the HDMI port, but you'll also see an expansion slot. And that expansion slot is for Microsoft's proprietary expansion SSD that at the moment is only being made by SanDisk and only comes in a 1 terabyte variant. Now, these are very cool because I actually really adore the concept of being able to load a game into this, unplug it from the console, take it to a buddy's house, Xbox Series X or Series S, pop this in and just play my games. That is really cool. This is like the PlayStation or Xbox memory cards from back in the day, but with entire games. It's really awesome. But unlike the PlayStation that uses a standard NVMe, and by extension means you have choice in your storage options, this is only available through Seagate at 1 terabyte at one price. Yeah, it's not a great value, and I really hope more companies start making these, but I'm really not holding my breath because if it requires this proprietary of a connection and the certain speeds that they want out of this, yeah, not holding my breath. Though I will admit, it's really cool to just pop it in the back there. I like that. Anyway, with those SSDs, there is a feature available that I guess could be considered a software feature, but is enabled because of the hardware, which is Quick Resume. The ADHD video gamer in me loves Quick Resume for a couple reasons. The main one is because the load times are extremely quick in general, but being able to actually hop into a game where you left off, even after you've moved to another game and just completely went off and did something else, is awesome. I can't tell you how many times I've hopped back into Forza Horizon, realized I was in the middle of a drift when I left, and crashed my car. It's really cool, and this feature for me is what makes the Xbox Series X feel like a next-generation console. For Sony, it was the controller. For the Xbox, it's Quick Resume, and it actually holds several games in Quick Resume at once, so I can go between Doom to Forza to Halo and still be able to go back to the first one I did and not miss a beat. It's actually really cool, though I've found myself actually spending less time in each game because I know I can go between games and not lose any progress. It's kind of funny how that works. But moving on from the benefits and disadvantages of the solid-state storage, the rest of the internals are very impressive. So you can do 4K 120 Hz gaming or 8K gaming, which, like I said on the PlayStation, I've done neither of these, but playing in 4K 60 has basically made it impossible for me to go back and play any other games that are just 1080p. It's kind of funny because even the upscaling for older games makes them look so much better than they did on older consoles. It's really wild. And for the few games that are Series S and X optimized, like Forza Horizon 4 or Doom Eternal, the feature sets that this can throw at them are impressive. The ray tracing in Doom Eternal, the amazing, honestly breathtaking visuals of Forza Horizon, and even things like the remaster of Halo 2, which originally came out on the Xbox One, look incredible with this hardware. So generally, just like the PlayStation 5, 4K gaming is here. It's great, and honestly, I can't go back now. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have a good transition away from the hardware because the biggest letdown with the hardware isn't the hardware itself. This is very clearly an incredibly capable piece of hardware. It's just being let down by the games available for it. It stays cool, it stays quiet, it loads games insanely fast. Even things like Flight Simulator that take upwards of a minute take like 5 minutes on a PC, even on a solid state drive. So kudos, but God, just take this thing off its chain. Give us a game that really leverages it, and I'll be happy. And with that, we're going to transition to the controller because it's the last thing on the list, and it's the thing I have the least things to say about. So when I talked about the PlayStation 5, I said that the controller was what made it feel the most like a next-generation console, and I went on and on about that controller because of all the things it did. Well, the next-generation feature for this is Quick Resume. And the last generation feature for this, apart from the games, is the controller. It's just an Xbox controller. It's literally an Xbox One controller with a flattened area where the jewel goes and a D-pad that has a slight amount of improvement. And I've had people say that, oh yeah, the grip is slightly improved. Like, maybe? I noticed more of a difference with the bumpers going smoothly into the body of the controller more than I noticed the grip. And it's just not anything special. If you've got an Xbox One controller, you have one of these with a different D-pad and you don't have a share button. And on the note of the share button, I found the share button personally more irritating because I play with an Elite controller more. So I will press it expecting to change profiles from shooter to racing and it'll take a screenshot. I know that's more on me, but yeah, like you already have a controller with a button here and they put the share button on here probably just because Sony has a share button. But, you know, Sony basically took the backwards compatibility thing from Xbox, so I'll give Xbox a pass on taking the share button from the PlayStation. It's just a whole big plastic coffin of nothing special. And the most heartbreaking thing for me was I saw during some of the reviews that it has a USB-C port, and I thought, finally, we have a controller for the Xbox that isn't an Elite controller with a built-in battery. But no, it still uses double A's. Nintendo and their Joy-Cons are built in. Their Pro Controller, the Switch Pro Controller has a built-in battery. The PlayStation has had a built-in battery since the PS3. Yeah, the battery life sucks, and I get that, and double A's do last a bit longer, but I don't ever play long enough to kill any rechargeable batteries. Why? Why still stick with the freaking double A's? I don't know, but that's enough complaining. So yeah, where the hardware really took massive steps to adding features that make it feel next generation, like Quick Resume and the super fast SSDs and the incredibly silent setup with the cooling, the controller just feels like it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing, you know? And if you really want to know how if it ain't broke, don't fix it these controllers are, just know that this controller compared to an Xbox One, and an Xbox One controller compare to a Series X. So if you're like me and you have one of these because you bought one, and you're also like me and have a controller you're more comfortable with, like the Elite controller, well, I mean, I guess you have a controller that you can give to your little brother or sister or cousin when they want to play a multiplayer game. So that's good. And I mean, cross-generation compatibility is definitely not a bad thing. It means less e-waste because now you have a controller that just works. You're not throwing away your old ones. But as somebody who has a lot more controllers than I know what to do with, I don't need another one. And if I am going to get another one, I want to feel like it's actually part of the $500 that you spend to get a next-gen console and not just a slight revision of something you've had out since the original Xbox One. But maybe that's just me. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are my first impressions and general thoughts on the Xbox Series X. definitely a next generation console. Please don't take away from this video that I don't like this console. I don't like the controller, but that's not because it's a bad controller. That's just because it's the same thing as last year. But this console, this is an impressive piece of kit. And really, if you're not too concerned about exclusives and you like playing older games and you don't want to lose your old library, but you want them to load a little faster, because that's a really cool thing, this is a really, really great piece of hardware. And just be warned, you're going to have to get more storage if you have a lot of games like me. But either way, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about the two different generations of consoles? Let me know what you think about this one. Head on over, watch the PlayStation video. It's up over there. You can check that out. And let me know what you guys think over there about the PlayStation 5. And here, there, anywhere, let me know, what console do you think you would get if you can get your hands on one? Because remember, don't buy from scalpers. You're just feeding the fire. And with that, I'll let you to it. Go ahead and leave a comment, like, subscribe, the whole 9 yards, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to be there and have a good one.